Hello there everybody, this is Alex from Hardcoring Guides, bringing you my guide for Deadpool on Ultra Violence difficulty. Today we're doing Chapter 5, entitled Landed in Prison. So, this is a chapter that I don't particularly like too much, mainly with the way that a lot of events happen. It does introduce a new enemy archetype that I like a lot, but the boss fight with blockbusters have been annoying, and then on top of that, the psychic teleporting people are going to be more of a common threat. And on top of all of that as well, you have to be forced to play as Rogue for about a few minutes, and it takes too long, and it's too annoying to deal with. But other than that, it's okay. It's your basic level, you know, I don't know what you call it, I guess. Just regular run-of-the-mill Deadpool level. I tried to think of something fancy to call it, but there's really nothing to specifically call this one. So for those that haven't been keeping up, or, you know, maybe you're just tuning into this particular video, I have not bought grenades yet, and it will be a while before I start doing that. And that's kind of my fault on that one. There's nothing wrong with buying your grenades. If you have the points for it, just do it, I recommend. Unless you're like me and you accidentally like to just press the R1 like just a ton, then, you know, I would suggest being careful of that, because I like to throw grenades a lot, even when I'm not trying to. It's a bad habit I have. But yeah, grenades are plenty in this level, and they're pretty much useful. It's just that at the time I was too stupid to realize that I probably could have gotten away with it. I don't know, I wasn't thinking straight when I did this. I didn't understand how the upgrade system worked really well. And this is coming from somebody who's supposed to be doing a guide to the game. But if you think about it this way, I'm practically teaching you guys how to avoid a lot of the issues that might come to you if you're playing like me, exactly. So, how to avoid a lot of the dumb mistakes I make. Speaking of enemy types, there's actually, well, technically the Vertigo enemies were there before. But these guys right here, these exploding guys, go for headshots if you can, because I think usually if you go for headshots, it seems like they drop more Deadpool points if you were to do that. Again, I haven't confirmed if that's true or not, but I just get the feeling that that's a possibility, so I always try to aim for the head. But other than that, just shoot them down when they spawn. Just, you know, no mercy. Just go in, guns blazing, clean them out. That type of thing. Do be careful, though, because sometimes they can flank you. So watch out for very specific areas where they might actually come from behind you. Just keep your eyes and ears peeled. But the other enemy archetype that actually appears in this chapter specifically are these other psychic magic type users. I guess we'll just call them like magic guys. I don't know what to really call them. But they shoot up this yellow magic ball, and it's very, very painful. So obviously don't get hit by it because it hurts. But in order to defeat them the best, because they're so damn tanky, I typically just rely on guns to kind of just do the job for me, because, as you know, you probably no doubt noticed by now, guns in this game do quite a bit of damage, especially if you're going for headshots, and I feel like regular melee attacks just don't do enough. Even when they're upgraded fully for your melee weapons, I still just feel like that's just not much in comparison to what your headshots can do. And then if you ever get the chance, you know, go for the stun execution combo. Basically knock them in there, let them fall on the ground, and then go for the execution by pressing the circle button or whatever proper button you're using for your console. If you happen to have the swords upgraded to the point where you could do the execution while they're standing up, that also helps too. So yeah, just treat them like you do the other clones I've mentioned before, which are like the more sort of tanky versions. Like the regular run-of-the-mill goons that are, you know, bald, without armor on, those are the ones that you kind of want to just go for the stun kills on, specifically because for some strange odd reason they're a little bit more tanky than what they probably should be, in my opinion. I don't know what happened to that guy, but he's gone. Fell straight off. But yeah, I did die, of course, so if you see any of these edits, that's where that kind of comes into play. And yeah, with these guys, I just rely on the execution move. I rely on air combos. These are the guys I was talking about that are the goons that are a tad bit tanky. Now, at this point in time, I've already kind of leveled up my stuff to at least do some extra damage, but it still just doesn't feel like it's enough, to be fair. It really feels like I should be doing more damage, but that's just how Deadpool kind of works when it comes to the hacking and slashing side of things. Is a lot of the time you're going to have a lot of enemies that just feel like they're just a little too tanky. That's not necessarily inherently a killer for me, so to speak. That's not going to just completely just, you know, demolish my likeness of this game or anything, like for me liking this game or whatever. That's not going to completely kill it. If anything, that would kill it. I'd say the final couple of chapters. No, at least the final chapter is definitely a blow to the groin. There's no doubt about that. That one just is abysmal to go through. But it is what it is. Other than that, you know, you got guys up here that are shooting down with guns. You got the defense guys. Once again, as always, go for the guy with defense. I'd say just go for the execution kill. That way you just get him dead completely and, you know, just immediately. Kind of weird how the other buff guys haven't showed up yet at all in these early chapters for some strange reason. I don't know why they wait till like chapter, you know, 6 and onward to kind of show the attack versions of them. Because there's actually 2 versions of the buff guys. There's defense and then there's attack. I think it would have been kind of cool if they added a speed one that was green. I don't know, I kind of like things being done in 3s. I don't know why. I've always had a strange obsession with that strange number. Even though my favorite number is 5, so I don't know what's up with that. Like, I've always just kind of liked the idea of trilogies, and anything that's past a trilogy is kind of stretching whatever trilogy it is. But that's never really a bad thing. It's usually like, oh, that's just basically bonus content at that point. Very strange way of putting it, yeah, but it made sense to me. It at least makes sense to me. So once again, we got a pair of these guys again. Momentum attacks or just whatever executions, you know, it's the typical straightforward, just regular run-of-the-mill enemies at this point they're going to be dealing with. So if they're grouped up like this, then the triangle heavy attack works wonders. The momentum, you know, L1X stuns them. So that's always kind of a nice thing to kind of have. If you're going for that, though. If not, you know, once again, I keep repeating it, but it's just because since it's a guide, I pretty much kind of have to. Is that, you know, executions are your friend. So be careful with this part. I go right first because I kept dying on this section. So the first fork in the road, I just go to the right because this leads you to, like, an ammo vault. There's not much else in there besides mainly just ammo stuff. So, you know, come back here if you need it. If you need grenades, if you need ammo for whatever guns you might have purchased at this point. Let's keep in mind I'm running kind of just the basic stuff. So you can stretch yourself out. You don't have to play exactly like I do if you're going for to beat ultraviolence mode. So just keep in mind that, you know, if you are going to buy weapons, that you do have to use those weapons to kill enemies in order to unlock the upgrades for them. However, for the things that I recommend highly upgrading first is definitely swords, pistols, and Deadpool himself. After that, everything else is just pretty much free game. Do whatever you want with it, I mean, to be fair. And if you die, you know, you keep your Deadpool points and you keep your upgrades. So you can just kind of keep dying over and over again and just essentially get to a point where you can pretty much grind for points, I guess. So be careful in these little ducts, these little areas, not ducts, but these little areas right here, because these guys can kind of, again, flank you. So that's something to be kind of a little bit weary about. I don't think they do it right there specifically, but there's an area that comes up either soon or later where they start to kind of come from behind, and that's something to be kind of weary of, unless I'm thinking of a completely different chapter. But either way, just, you know, keep your fingers on those triggers, I guess you could say. Keep it ready for that snap. And with this, whenever it comes to a group of enemies, I recommend just going for the L1 circle version, the gun, shooty, kill everybody, attack. The L1 square, I would recommend just keeping it saved for, like, big boss guys to go through. And not worry about using it on just small amounts of, you know, groups of mooks and what have you. So, L1X should just be used if you have, like, if you need the iframes, if you need to heal for a little bit, or if you just want to get some guys stunned, get them off your ass, get them off your back or whatever. Whatever you need in the moment. And again, if you have swords upgraded, you can actually unlock the execution move while they're standing, and that's actually extremely pretty helpful. But I don't have that yet. I only have the gun version, so yeah, I'm pretty much stuck with that. Granted, if you use momentum, it's not a big deal, because when big guys do spawn and you have to fight them, it's not that big of a, a problem to deal with. Just shoot them in the head a bunch of times and you'll get momentum, like, real quick. So, you never really technically need to be prepared when it comes to Deadpool, though, to be fair. It's a very interesting system that works with the momentum by basically making it to where, headshots can earn you extra momentum a lot faster for everything. And it just, I don't know, it's a cool system. That's basically what I'm trying to say. Did I say the name of this chapter correctly? I think I did. But yeah, I wanted to show off there. I had the upgrades. After I opened the door, I was going toward the sauna area, and that's when, after the first cutscene, before I entered in, I unlocked some stuff. So we just now recently unlocked some abilities for the sword, which allows me to, whenever an enemy is in standing and they're stunned at the same time, I could just go for the circle and attack them that way. I also upgraded some. I also got some new moves. I got some new moves. That's what I'm trying to say. So yeah. Now when it comes to these teleporting enemies, they're a pain in the ass, and I don't think they have execution moves that you could do on them. I think you're just kind of forced just to fight them completely. But I would recommend using all your momentum, especially if you upgraded the swords like I did at this point. You have the L1 triangle, which would be extremely helpful. If you don't, and they teleport inside walls like this, and then just go for headshots, and that will just clean them out pretty quick. They are extremely tanky, at least until they get shot in the head, and then all of a sudden it's just completely gone, as you can see. So I would recommend at this point upgrading your swords to at least its fullest capacity. The new combos we got aren't really anything I would say that are nifty. They're fine, it's just that the thing that I need the most is actually just the execution, and the L1 triangle move is extremely helpful as well. So yeah, these guys, these magic guys are back again. Once again, they're extremely tanky as hell. They're probably some of the most tankiest of the regular villain, like regular lackeys that you pretty much have to deal with on a day-to-day basis here. So, headshots galore, as always. That's pretty much what Deadpool kind of just starts to kind of fall into after a while. Is it gets to a point where your guns are going to be probably your better option for dealing with situations more often than not. If you are going to be using the L1 triangle like I am, just stay on the opponent as long as you can. And when it comes to these teleporting enemies, what they'll do is they won't really teleport too far. Typically, if they're on the ground already fighting you, they most likely will probably just teleport to a different spot in the room rather than teleporting to a wall. I think if you just let them go for a little while, they'll eventually just disappear into a wall. But from my experience, it seems like every time I'm fighting them on the ground, if I'm at least fighting one, then it's just gonna, teleport away. Also, thank God for the 8 combo, get my health back upgrade, because that's extremely, extremely helpful. And as far as I'm aware, I think the 8 combo only works in the combo itself. I don't think you can just get... I'm not sure if it was 8 hits in a row, just even if you drop the combo or not, if that counts. I want to say yes, but I also want to say no, because I'm not really 100% sure, but yeah. Also, something like this, can also suck and happen too, so I just gave up and just went for, the equalizer strikes. And did what I could just to cut him down. I at least had a platform to stand on. It just sucks that happens, where you just run out of ammo and you pretty much have no choice. But then again, that's kind of my fault for pretty much just playing with nothing but pistols for a good portion of the game, that realizing that I could have just bought shotgun and upgraded that. If you're looking for a gun to get, I would recommend the sniper, like the plasma rifle is pretty good, and the shotgun are pretty good. The machine gun, like every gun in this game is great to its own extent. Everything has its use. It's just that machine gun at low level is kind of pathetic, but everything else is pretty good. Like the plasma is pretty good, the pistols are pretty good, and then the shotgun is pretty good, because it just basically blows a dude's head, clean off right in front of you, so it's kind of nice to have that option. It's a shotgun, it's going to do what shotguns do best, It's just for some reason I feel like the micros just, or, the submachine gun or whatever, it just doesn't feel like it does a lot of damage But it does have a pretty nice clip, and I think that's where it probably ends up kind of becoming useful in the beginning. So just bear that in mind, that of course a non-upgraded, you know, machine gun will just be a little bit on the weak side for a while. So if you are going to go for upgrading that, then there you go. Technically, you don't need to upgrade your pistols or even your swords. There are other weapons you can get that you can use to your liking. I personally, for me, I think the hammers are also a really good option, this like outside of the swords. But I'm not a big fan of the sais. I don't think they're really that fun to use or that good, but I'm not much of a sai type guy anyway. I'm not much of a Raphael fan from TMNT, if you know what I'm saying, so I don't know, it just feels weird. I'm more of like a basic swords slash big weapon hit hard type dude. Yeah, then the sitcom section. I kind of forgot about that, but funny little cutscene. Trying to think of where we're at right now. Oh yes, more enemies to spawn, of course. My favorite. So yeah, teleporting bastards. I guess that's probably just call them that way, or call them that. I just go for just nothing but shooting them. I mean, they're in the walls. I can't exactly melee them anyway, like when they're in the walls or on the ceiling, so I don't really have much of a choice. So I'm practically just better off just going for those gunshots and just completely wasting them down. You can see, like, it does, like I said before, you know, plenty of times now, but I just like to repeat everything because that's just what I do. But you can definitely see that it does huge amounts of damage, and it's very useful to have. Sorry, I sound like a broken record. It's just a thing that I do. It's not an audience problem. It's really not. It's just my own brain likes to do that. Because I like to hear myself talk. That's pretty much the situation. So right here, you know, go for those executions if you can. With these ass wipes, these teleporting ones, they're a pain to deal with because, again, you can't really execute them. Unless it's a certain health thing. I didn't really ever test that. But, you know, one good group attack is definitely the slashing L1 triangle move. It is extremely, extremely useful against group enemies. No doubt. I'd say it's probably one of your better ones because you can you can move it around, and especially against, you know, melee enemies and such, it's just extremely powerful against them because they just can't do much about it. They get stunned while they're, well, not really stunned, but they're just stuck not being able to attack you for a good while. And the other really good one, of course, is the gun version, which also can sometimes, you know, hit enemies at a decent amount of range. But yeah, these teleporting douchebags get kind of annoying. Go for shots or go for the uppercut, knock them in the air, just keep them from teleporting, and, you know, just try to drill them down as fast as you can. They should usually be priority number one, because typically the other melee enemies will just fall into place until they start blocking, and then that becomes a problem. Because, see, this isn't exactly Twitter, so, well, they could... This isn't Twitter anymore, so they can block everything. Also, bear this in mind. If you come over here to this pipe, you got a checkpoint now. So you pretty much locked yourself out of whatever else you could have gotten on that other side. So I apologize for that, for not showing that side, because my dumbass didn't realize that that was a thing. I did actually end up getting that stuff before I died, but then my editing brain thought it didn't count. But it does count. So on the left, I did get stuff. But you can get stuff too. It's just platformer stuff. It's nothing really too fancy. Nothing too hard. But just keep in mind that if you do go to this pipe, that you will be checkpointed and you will not be able to return to that other section that you came from. So in here, you saw that there was a red barrel, or a couple of red barrels. That's going to start coming in handy. To this right side over here, this is the only entrance and exit out of this little small tiny area right here. But you can get a few Deadpool points. Pretty nice chunk of them. And then other than that, just go ahead and leave. I get spiral flashbacks when I think of these things, because I think of that area called Metalhead, where there's like a key, where like the key's at you can go get. It's like in this back behind a broken caged area. For anybody that ever played Spiral 1 might know what I'm talking about. I also think about Bioshock as well. Like when you're in Farmer's Market, or not, when you're in Arcadia and you see the Houdini for the first time, you go down to that waterway, and there's like that trap wire that has like a corpse next to it that you can just pick up and throw into the trap wire to save you from, well, getting shocked. Unless you have, you know, electric flesh at that point, but, well, you don't really. But yeah, other than that, you know, more melee guys, more gun dudes. While they're, you know, coming through here trying to chase you down, just shoot the barrels, explode them, kill them that way. It's pretty efficient. And also, since I have the upgraded version of the swords to allow me to do the execution for standing, you could definitely tell that when an enemy is stunned while they stand, it makes it much easier to kill them than it does while they're on the ground. So here's a pro tip that actually might be useful to some. If an enemy is on the ground and they're stunned, like let's say you upgrade an enemy or whatever, and then they land on the ground stunned, right? Because that's typically what happens. But you don't want to go for the gun execution move. You'd rather just go for the other move instead, like the standing one, because it's faster. Well, there's a way to do that. All you gotta do is just teleport into the enemy, and they'll eventually just get up and still be stunned. Sometimes you just walk into them. You don't have to teleport into them. Sometimes you just run into them, and they sometimes just do that. But yeah, this guy right here, just go for headshots. If you got momentum for it, then just go for momentum. It saves you a lot of trouble to just kill him. The L1X version of it's not really that useful against him, so keep that in mind. The other, you know, L1 triangle especially is really good against him, and L1 square, yeah, decimates him. And something I didn't do was I didn't pick up the machine gun that he did drop, or sorry, the grenade launcher he dropped. So that's something that you could pick up if you wanted to. I didn't really give a shit because, I don't know, I just don't like carrying it around. I much prefer just the other weapons, but at this point I kind of just gave up and just went for it. I also realized that the grenade launcher actually sticks to enemies too, so that's cool. Yeah, it comes with 20 shots. I mean, it's 20 free shots, so... I mean, why not? It's got a good splash damage, pretty decent gun. The other variant is the ice variant, which is a machine gun type. Oh, I guess I upgraded the bleeding. So there you go. I got fully upgraded sword. I have all the bleeding attributes. Absorb damage from any strike, that kind of thing. Or from the first strike. So basically, I can make it to where I don't lose a combo, I think. I think I could take like a hit and then just get health from it. I don't know exactly how that one's supposed to work, but... I don't know. I'm not gonna shit on it. If I don't know what I'm talking about, I'm just gonna tell you I just don't know. I don't want to come off like I know it all or anything like that, because that's pretty damn annoying. But I'll try my best. This is, I think, our... Well, not technically our first appearance of chests, because we already had, like, that one Legend of Zelda area back then that had a chest, I think. But chests are not going to be a thing until, I think, like, the next chapter, actually. The one, like, with the pirate stuff. I keep saying pirate shit, but... Now I'm thinking ahead about all the crap I'm going to have to deal with editing later. Oh, boy. There's a few specific chapters that have a bit of some boring elements to them that I didn't really care for. Mostly like the carnival section stuff. I think it's the Death Baby one, which is literally the next chapter. So, alright. Now we have these new enemy types. I kind of forgot that they were here too. And I don't have a name for them, so I'm just going to call them slashers because I feel like that's just pretty much what they do. They're essentially the same type of enemy type that we fought a dozen of times before. Just, I think they're a bit faster probably. I'm not 100% sure on that one. But either way, they're not that difficult to deal with. They're actually a lot weaker than the teleporting ones, which you would think they would be, but yeah, for some strange, odd reason, they just kind of are. They're just kind of regular melee enemies, I guess, just a little bit, probably a little bit faster, I assume. Because there's got to be some type of benefit to, you know, having a different type of lackey besides just changing up things. Which there's a game that did that. I'm trying to think of what game did that. Where, the lackeys were all the same, but, like, the designs would change over the course of the game. And I'm pretty sure it was a hack and slash, too. It's not God of War. It's not Devil May Cry. I don't know what it was. Yeah, I'm blanking on it. I mean, I guess maybe Wolverine's close to that, but you still fight the same dorky enemies throughout most of the game anyway. Much like you do with Deadpool. I don't think High Moon Studios was the ones that made Wolverine X-Men Origins, but I really wouldn't be surprised if they had somebody that worked on it here. Because like you would feel like these games would kind of coincide with each other, even though like I know that X-Men Origins Wolverine is based on the movie, I understand that, and Deadpool is based on, well, nothing besides himself. So there's a clear difference between the games, but there's still like just a hint of, I don't know, like a maybe, you know, like maybe there's some to it, but then again, you could also say like, well, you could relate Deadpool from this game, like you could relate it to Wolverine from the X-Men game on Genesis or something, you know what I mean? So it's like, I'm kind of just fishing for straws here. Which, that's something I want to talk about, actually, not fishing, but something else, is that when it came to my guides, I realized that I had a funny way of doing them recently, in my recent path for these games. So, I started out doing, what was it, Wolverine, I think, first. Or no, go back. Okay, so it was Chains of Olympus. I was doing God of War Chains of Olympus. And then we did a God of War clone, quote-unquote. It's not really a full God of War clone, but it's close enough, you know. It has some ideas of God of War, but it's still just different enough to not really be a full rip-off or even clone. But you get the idea. If we're not counting Chains of Olympus, then I basically started with Wolverine, and the final boss of Wolverine was Deadpool. And what I find funny is after Deadpool, I'm doing Dead Space. So I found that kind of funny. I was like, wait a minute. What a strange segue. I stuttering. I wanted to do Deadpool anyway, after. At least one of the two. So I decided to go with Deadpool because I felt like it'd make a pretty funny segue that way. But I didn't realize about the Dead Space thing until just now. And then after Dead Space 2, I plan on hopefully doing God of War 3. I was doing a marathon of all the God of Wars again. I did it once before, and I got to God of War 4, and because, you know, God of War 5 was not out at the time. And then I beat them all on, you know, very hard. Whatever that could be for that specific game. Whether it be God, or Give Me God of War, or Titan. Or Chaos, God forbid. But I got to, in my marathon, I got to God of War 3. And just got bored and couldn't do it. And I kind of sort of blame it on, I would say, probably just streaming it, I think, ruined it, but I don't know. I'm just also not that big of a fan of God of War 3 anyway, but we'll see when I get to that. Let's Play. Once we get to that guide, we'll see what happens. Also, the reason why I fast-forwarded that entire section was mainly because, well, the first part of it was platforming that I messed up a lot, and then the second part of it was just nothing but fucking walking, and that sucks. You only really realistically walk a couple of times in this game, to be fair. Like, there's a beginning section with Chapter 1 where you're pretty much walking around the house. And I did have to record gameplay for that. I don't really have a choice on that one because it is a chapter. So, we had to, you know, watch the walking. But it gave me enough time to kind of just introduce what the hell I was doing, so to speak. But, yeah, welcome to the hopping on the rafters thing or whatever here, and just climbing on things and doing puzzle stuff again. I'm not really sure how to get those super Deadpool points that were up there that you might have saw. I don't know exactly how to get those. Yeah, once you arrive up here, you can go for a quick stealth kill or just go for the execution. It's whatever, it's your choice. If you want to fight these guys, that's fine, but I feel like stealth just makes it way easier. Plus, I think it's cooler. I personally think the stealth kills are pretty fun, honestly. What's actually kind of cool is the different weapons do different executions and different stealth kills. Which, that's how I feel about this game in general, is like it has a lot of stuff that's really kind of cool to it. It's got a lot of attention to detail, that's what's called. They really did pay attention to a lot of their stuff when it comes to this game. There's at least some passion behind it in some way, shape, or form. Whether or not you find the game funny is, up to you, but I think for what it's worth, I still think it's got a lot of good stuff to it. Yeah, the hacking and slashing is a bit weak in some areas, but for the most part, I still think it's a pretty damn good game. Pretty fun playthrough every once in a while, Not something I would say is like, oh wow, I gotta play it all the time. But, you know how it is. Actually, funny enough, speaking of games that I play all the time, Bioshock's my favorite game, for those that are curious or ever wondered. So Bioshock's my favorite game, and I've been kind of like talking with this guy at work every once in a while, like becoming kind of a bit of an acquaintance, I guess you could say. And he asked me like, "Oh, what do you do for fun?" Like he watches sports and stuff. And I just basically said, "Oh, I play video games." And he's like, "Oh, okay, cool." And he's like, "I play sometimes, but not that much." And I'm thinking like, "Well, yeah, he's like 30-ish, wife, probably kids." I understand that, But then he asked what was my favorite thing to play, and I just instinctively reacted with just Bioshock. And he said, "Wait a minute, isn't that an old game?" And I thought to myself, "The hell you mean old? I played it like not that long ago." And then I thought about it, and I was like, "Wait a minute, I guess Bioshock is old. Like, it came out in 2007, so yeah, it's a bit old." He just thought it was interesting, like, it's kind of a bit of a retro game now. And it kind of got me thinking, too, and I was like, oh, man, that really is kind of weird. Like, Bioshock basically is a retro game at this point. Or at least close to it. If not, maybe it is. I mean, it was on PC for a bit. So, I mean, if I kind of consider Fear to be kind of a classic game. So I guess, if anything, Bioshock's pretty close to that, too, I guess. Oh, shit. But, I told him, like, I just prefer retro games anyway. That's just how I am. That's just how that's just how I do. That's how I work. I'm more of a prefer the stuff that works than the stuff that doesn't. Even though I don't know for a fact if it's going to be good or not, but I'm going to get Armored Core 6. So, I'm looking forward to that. That's at least a new game to try. So this part right here, this entire stealth section kind of sucks a little bit because I got spotted multiple times. However, as you can tell with my points, even if you get spotted, you just restart the section over. You don't really technically die. You kind of do and you don't. It's really weird. But you just restart the entire stealth section, and that includes the enemies respawning. So, really all it's about is just staying on their line of sight, knowing where they're at. It's just the one guy in front. You wait for the defense guy to just, stand with his back turned, go for him, and then, look at the guy going left and right, watch out for him, and then for this guy, you just want to wait for him to go upstairs, and then kill him that way, and then you're pretty much just done. It's not that hard, but it does get a bit tedious whenever you fail it multiple times, and you're just thinking, like, why the hell did I fail it for? Because it didn't look like I should have. But, yeah. So, other than that, this is Blockbuster, and the way you defeat him is you pretty much just wait for him to charge at you, and I don't really exactly have a way to make him charge. I just think he does it on his own. Also, don't worry about the mooks. They're just kind of there. Whenever you do knock him and basically stun him, I would suggest trying to maybe try to go for uppercut attacks. Try to hopefully see if you can try to juggle them and get some damage that way. Or at the very least, if you're on the ground like I was, then go for the triangle slashes. Because if you're waiting for the time to use momentum, it's not really going to work. Gunshots do work, but they have the issue of knocking them back down on the ground. So that's something to kind of keep an eye out for too. If you want to use a specific momentum, I would suggest L1 circle and L1 triangle to be that momentum that you use. So, because as you can see here, it does a decent amount of damage, and I get a few critical shots in there too. So, yeah, L1 triangle should be the one you ought to rely on more often. It's not a tough fight. It's only tough when you have to fight the clone version of him in the final boss, where you have to fight both him, Arclight, and Vertigo at the same time. Although Vertigo is just not really much of a threat anyway. But yeah, I had no time to be able to use the L1 square move, so I pretty much just had to activate it and then just let that go. Also, for those that are not aware, if an item is dropped on the ground, like say Deadpool points or even ammo or just whatever, do keep in mind that that stuff can disappear after a while, so try to pick it up. It takes a bit to disappear, but it's long enough to where you should really theoretically go for at least the Deadpool, whatever you need, you know, whatever it might be, Deadpool points or ammo or whatever. So just, you know, like I said, keep that in mind. So next section is the rogue section. So how I play this is I play it very safe. So she has a few moves that she can do. This, I think, is her triangle moves. That cartwheel is extremely painful to them. It does a lot of damage. And it also breaks guard, which is something you want to rely on. So I would suggest don't go for square moves, but instead go for triangle moves if you're fighting just like regular enemies that just aren't causing too much trouble. And then after that, when the other waves of enemies start to spawn in, which should be soon, I'd say start dodging out of there and just trying your best. You'll know when you're dodging when she does like this little spin twirl thing right there. So this spin twirl thing is your dodge. It's your teleport. So whenever you hit circle, you teleport around. And if you get hit a few times, run away, run back, go back in for the triangle attacks. Go in for the ones that shoot magic more often than not. So go for the magic users. Don't worry about the melee guys, or if there's some gun dudes in there, which I don't think there was, go for them. But yeah, I would suggest don't worry about the melee ones, but just worry about the psychic ones. Those ones should be the top priority to kill, because they do a lot of damage, and the magic users especially will just chip off a lot of health, and it's not fair to her. Really at all. It's a pretty odd segment, but it makes sense in context, but it's just annoying that we have to deal with it anyway. But yeah, these are the magic guys I was talking about, the ones shooting those yellow balls. Just, you know, whenever you get a chance to attack them, go for the heavy slashes the best you can, and just kill them off. There is a lot of enemies. You don't have guns. You can't really do much with it. So you're better off just running in, running out, that kind of thing. Whenever you're getting like low on health or even taking a hit, I would suggest getting out of there as fast as possible. But other than that, that's pretty much it. So yeah, take care, everybody.